Andy's the new executive director of Recycle Utah and also a promotional partner for the third annual Zero Waste Forum. Please welcome Andy to the stage.
Most of us in this room know that when you think about diversion, sorry, I'll find the distance here soon. When you think about diversion, most people think about the inconvenience of that. The smelly bins, and right here, okay. The smelly bins, the missed pickups, the full dumpster after the holiday weekend. But I want to suggest something different. Trash is about inconvenience. Trash is not about inconvenience. Trash is about systems. And systems, when designed poorly, quietly shape our behavior, the economics, and the environmental outcomes for decades. But when redesigned intentionally, they can transform a community. I want to share a story about how philanthropy helped spark the shift in our county's waste system, and how organizations like Recycle Utah, Park City Community Foundation, Wasteless Solutions, amongst many others, are now building the infrastructure to carry that transformation forward. Like many communities in the American West, our community built its waste system around one default destination. That was the landfill. Organic material, cardboard, plastics, metal, glass, materials that still had plenty of value were ending up in the landfill. But the deeper issue wasn't environmental, it's structural. It wasn't that people didn't care. It was that systems made the wrong behavior easy and the right behavior difficult. If you want to understand waste behavior, don't study the morality of everyone. Study our infrastructure. What bins exist? What services are available? What price signals guide our decisions? What habits are reinforced by the convenience of the systems around us? Our county, here in Summit County, the system defaulted to the landfill, and defaults matter. This is where philanthropy entered the story. Philanthropy is often misunderstood. It's not about writing checks, not about filling the gaps. It's not about charity. The most powerful part of philanthropy is something very different. It de-risks change. It allows communities to try something before the market is ready, before the policies are aligned, before the perfect certainty exists out there. In our case, philanthropy funded early pilots and coordinated efforts and asked some simple questions. What if we redesign the system? What if we supported new collection programs? What if we helped coordinate haulers, processors, businesses, schools, nonprofits, HOAs? What if we reduced the friction that prevented the participation in diversion efforts? Those philanthropic investments were not massive compared to the budgets of infrastructure, but they are very catalytic. They allowed experimentation. They absorbed the early risk. They built trust among unlikely partners. And most importantly, they demonstrated the feasibility of what we're trying to do. These early pilots proved something really important. That when you make diversion easy, people participate. Households sign up, schools join, businesses explore new practices, neighborhoods start participating together, but something deeper happens. The conversation shifts. Instead of asking, how do we design a system where diversion becomes the default? The reframe changes everything. How do we design a system where diversion is default? Because behavior doesn't scale through guilt, as the last speaker just mentioned. It scales through design. Today, organizations like Recycle Utah play a critical role in turning the early momentum into long-term infrastructure. Recycle Utah has served this community for 35 years as a nonprofit recycling center just down the street from here. But increasingly, our role is not just processing materials, it is helping design the regional system of the future. That means thinking about waste differently, not as trash, but as materials management. Where should these materials be processed locally? How do we build resilient regional infrastructure? And how do we make recycling, diversion accessible to everyone in our community? These questions led to real investments: expanded material recovery capacity, improved public drop-off infrastructure, better partnerships with hauling and municipalities, data systems that help us understand diversion trends, education programs that reach out to residents, schools, businesses, municipalities across the whole county, and perhaps most importantly, how we design the next generation of recycling facilities. Because facilities are not just warehouses for material, they are community infrastructure, places where education, recovery, circular economy practices all intersect. What started as just small pilot programs is now influencing much bigger conversations. In our community, we are actively discussing regional materials recovery capacity, expanded diversion infrastructures, public-private partnerships, new facility development, education integrated around recycling systems throughout. This is the moment where pilot programs evolve into the physical infrastructure. And infrastructure is what allows systems to scale. Philanthropy helped push that flywheel to get in motion. But long-term change comes from operations, facilities, partnerships, policy alignment, community participation. That's how system transformation happens. A few things that we're learning along this journey. 1, make the right choice the easy choice. Behavior follows design. If sustainability requires extraordinary effort, only extraordinary people will do it. But if systems make the sustainable choice convenient, participation will explode. 2, philanthropy should de-risk, not replace systems. Philanthropy is the most powerful at the beginning of this journey. It funds the experimentation. It builds early partnerships. It proves what's possible. And it can fail. But in that failing, it fails forward and it learns and grows into better systems. Long-term success requires transitioning to sustainable systems supported by operations, policy, and community engagement. 3, the hardest part of the weight system is not technical, it's relational. Haulers, municipality leaders, nonprofits, residents, businesses, schools, everyone. Systems shift when people align, and alignment requires trust. Philanthropy helps create the time and the space for that trust to develop. 4th, data builds momentum. Waste diversion data is difficult and expensive to measure precisely. But even directional data matters because transparency builds credibility, and credibility builds the momentum. Today, the conversation in our community is no longer, should we recycle more? The conversation is, what infrastructure do we need to support circular materials systems for the next 35 years? That includes new recycling infrastructure, regional organics processing, improved material recovery, public education embedded into facilities, stronger partnerships between nonprofits, municipalities, and private haulers. In other words, we are moving from programs to systems. But I want to end with something broader. Waste is not just an environmental issue. It's a design issue. It's a systems issue. It's a values issue. What does a community choose to value? Convenience, cost, longevity, resilience? Philanthropy allowed our community to test the new answer. It allowed us to say, what if we designed systems that recover resources instead of burying them? And once those values are embedded into infrastructure, they shape our waste stream for generations. So when I think about this journey, I don't think about the bins. I think about belief. Belief that we can change. Belief that collaboration can overcome the inertia. Belief that small catalytic investments can unlock structural redesign. And belief that communities, when given the right architecture, will rise to the occasion. Trash was the entry point for us. Transformation is the work ahead. Thank you.